Okay, welcome back. What I want to look at today is environmental protection legislations. Okay. Okay. Now let me just make sure I get back that I can get all this in. Now this is for Sitting Gills 2357 and the new 5357. Now the technology or the knowledge is still the same, even though Sitting Gills has just changed the number. Now one of the reasons I believe this change came about was because from my experience the 5357 or the previously 2357 apprentices has to do what's called an NVQ folder. That is a record of their on-site work. And I believe this covers units 311 to 318. Now one of the problems with that was was the photographic evidence. Some people try to do it as a sentence when really you need the photographic evidence to show that you actually have done the work. Now don't ever pose in those pictures, because if I'm your electrical assessor, I would make you do them again, and I will be on site to ensure that it has been done. So don't fake it, gentlemen. It's for real. Okay, let's move on. Now I want to make sure that all the information here is provided and can be seen. Understand the environmental legislation, working practices and principles which are relevant to work activities. By the end of this outcome, you will have had the opportunity to specify the current, describe what is meant by the term environment, describe the ways in which the environment may be affected by work activities, identify and interpret the requirements for electrical installations as outlined in relevant sections of the building regulations and the code for sustainable homes. Now be aware that the code for sustainable homes has changed. Okay, so I believe that has been updated. In some cases, certain parts may have been removed, but don't hold me to it. Check and check, because these are constantly changing all the time. State material and products that are classified as hazardous to the environment, recyclable. Describe the organizational procedures for processing materials that are classed as hazardous to the environment and recyclable. Okay, now I want to make sure that we get all of this in, so I will always try to make sure that this comes into play every time. Okay. Right now, let me just bring it up a bit, make sure that we get it all in. Okay. Bear with me for a second while I make sure that we get it all in. Okay. Now the environment. The Environmental Protection Act 1990 defines the environment as follows. The environment consists of all or any of the following: the air, water, and land. Air includes the air within buildings and the air within other natural or man-made structures above or below ground. Okay. And here we're just showing you a number of those items which can be deemed as being hazardous or environmental situations. The waste created from construction work. Now, 10 million tons of construction products are wasted every year at a cost of 1.5 billion. Now, that figure may since change. Basically, whether it has gone up or has gone down. Now, if it's gone down, it would be in our interest. It will show that we're moving in the right direction. But I have no evidence to this at this point in time. So please bear in mind and use the HSE website to find out these information in regards to waste created from construction sites, because they're quite good and they do provide some very useful information. So again, use the HSE website, Health and Safety Executive website. Much of this site waste is harmful to the environment. Waste can be reduced by only ordering, taking from the stores what you need, returning unused items to the supplier if possible, using recycled items if available, asking suppliers to use only the minimum packaging, separating waste into color-coded containers, making storage areas secure, covering or netting any loose materials. Now obviously I've only given you the first point of this. You can read this for yourselves, so I would expect you to apply that methodology of reading it for yourselves. All I'm doing is introducing the main points to you. And here we have the Environmental Protection Act 1990. The Environmental Protection Act 1990 also defined the following: term, pollution of the environment. Definition. Now you can read this definition for yourselves. I don't need to read this out to you. Okay? Applied. Pollution of the environment. Harm. Harm to the health of living organisms. Waste. This means any scrap material or liquid arising from a process. Okay? Again, we're still on the Environmental Protection Act 1990. Control waste, household, industrial or commercial waste. Household waste, waste from a domestic property, caravan, residential homes, nursing homes, etc., etc. Industrial waste. Any factory waste, waste from the supply of public gas, water or electricity or sewage, postal or telecommunications. Now check to see if there's been any amendments to this, or has there been any addition in regards to the 1990 Act, Environmental Act, because this act is constantly under change. Okay, so be aware of that. Make sure you check and double check. All you have to go do is type in Environmental Protection Act 1990 and it will bring you up into the right area of the work that you'll need to be looking at. Commercial waste, waste from premises use for trade, sport, recreation or entertainment. Producer, anyone who produces waste or anyone who carries out processing, mixing or changing the waste. Process, any activities carried out on or in Great Britain, whether on premises or by means of mobile plant, which are capable of causing pollution of the environment. And again, we still continue with the Environmental Protection Act 1990. Mobile plant which is designed to be moved by road or otherwise. Substance shall be treated as including electricity or heat. Substance released into the air, land or water by emissions into the air, by entry including discharging to the water and any keeping, deposit or disposal of a substance on the land. Enforcing authority. Now, the enforcing authority in England and Wales is the environmental agency or the local authority, and these people provide a lot of information as well. That I believe that they provide booklets, etc. So there can be a port of call if need be. Authorization is the authorization for process either on site or by mobile plant. Okay. Now, if I have the time to go through and read this, you will need to do the same thing yourself. You must read the information provided. Do not assume you know it offhand. Again, we're still on the Environmental Protection Act 1990. The environment. I'm sorry about that. You can't really predict a telephone ringing in the middle of a video record. So you do have my apologies. And again, I apologize. This part has been replaced by the Pollution Prevention Act 1999 and the Environmental Permitting Act 2010. Now you can see already here that we've changed, there has been amendments to the 1990 Act. Part 2, Waste on Land. This part of the Act introduced a new system of covering the management and disposal of waste. So if you need to look it up in the sense of waste on regards to Part 2. Under Section 33 of the Act, it is an offence to dispose of, treat or store controlled waste without a waste management license. So here you need now a license to manage waste. Part 2 also places a duty of care on anyone who produces, imports, keeps, carries, disposes of, or acts as a broker of controlled waste. Now remember that your car is a means of controlled waste, so if your car is no longer usable, you'll need to scrap it through the appropriate people. Now again here, Environment Act, Protection Act, still 1990, Part 2, under Section 33 of the Act, a person cannot deposit controlled waste or knowingly cause or permit controlled waste to be deposited. Cannot submit controlled waste or knowingly cause or permit controlled waste to be submitted to any listed operation that is carried out in or on land or by means of mobile plant in any way other than by an environmental permit. In short terms, you need a permit now to carry out or handle waste. Now, but again, as I've said, refer to the Environmental Protection Act and to any amendments which has been employed. And if I go back a little bit here, 1 second. If I go back here, you'll see that the Environmental Protection Act is divided into 2 parts. This part has been replaced by the Pollution Prevention Act. Okay, to be aware of that. Now the movement of waste. Moving waste. When controlled waste is carried in or deposited from a motor vehicle, the person who is in control of the vehicle shall be treated as knowingly caused the waste to be deposited, whether or not he gave the instructions. A person who breaks the rules for waste disposal is committing an offence. unless it is found that they took all reasonable precautions to avoid the offense, or it was done in an emergency to protect human health. Duty of care. It is the duty of care of any person who imports, carries, keeps, or disposes of controlled waste or who controls waste, etc., to prevent the breaking of any regulations, to prevent the escape of waste from his control or that of anyone else, to transfer waste to any unauthorized person, etc., etc. Now, it is the duty of the occupier of domestic premises to take all reasonable measures to make sure that household waste is only given to an authorized person or authorized transport. Part 2A. Now, I cannot determine whether this is part 2A or part 11A, but we'll take it as it stands for the time being, and I will try to make sure that we know which part we're talking about. But remember that when you look in the documentations, it will have this reference to it, okay? So that should not be a problem. It's finding the correct reference. Contaminated land. Now, this was added to the Act in 1995. So you can see already we've moved from 1990 and we're now in 1995, and how much changes has already taken place. Local authorities have a duty to inspect land to identify whether any contamination has taken place. Contaminated land is land which appears to be in such a condition caused by substances on the land to which significant harm is being caused, pollution of water, or is likely to be caused. Construction sites can contribute to contamination through polluted water, chemical substances, leaking drums, unsecured items blown in the wind, waste not sorted and sent to unlicensed sites. Okay? Now, Part 3, Statutory Nuisance and Clean Air. This part of the Act defines the following statutory nuisances: smoke emitted from premises, fumes or gases, noise emitted from premises, noise that is harmful, machinery or equipment, pardon me, sorry. Machinery or equipment in the street, artificial light which causes a nuisance. Now, obviously, artificial light which causes a nuisance, that would be light that is constantly flickering on and off. Okay, that would be a means of a nuisance. Now here we have the Environmental Permitting England and Wales Regulations 2010. An environmental permit is a document prepared by a regulator, either the Environment Agency or your local authority. It has conditions which you must follow to prevent your business from harming the environment or human health. There are two main types of environmental permits: standard permits, and you can read this for yourselves, okay? Bespoke permits. Bespoke permits contain site-specific conditions written for your activity. They are generally more expensive and take longer to process than a standard permit because the environmental risk and impact of the activity or operation must be assessed. Now, Waste, England and Wales, Regulation 2011, and the Waste Miscellaneous Provisions Wales 2011 regulations. List of typical hazardous waste. Now all we're doing here is listing the typical hazardous waste: acids, alkaline solutions, batteries, cathodes, red tube, fluorescent tubes, fridges, industrial solvents, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, waste oils, wood preservatives, asbestos. Now, at one time, asbestos would probably have come at the top. Okay. But as we have been driven on regard to health and safety and the awareness of asbestos over so many years now, that it's probably beginning to become more accepted that asbestos is dangerous and still needs to be treated with the utmost care. Okay. If you produce, transport, or receive hazardous waste, you will be regulated by the hazardous waste regulations. Okay. Duty of care. As a waste producer, you have a duty of care to ensure your waste is managed lawfully. Now, I'm not going to read this through to you because you will now need to take the time to read this through for yourselves. So you're making sure you're compliant with the regulations that's applicable to yourself. And here we have a consignment note. Consignment note used when transferring hazardous waste. So basically, you will need one of these to show that you are legitimately transferring those waste you have been given. Be aware for any update to this, of course. Be aware of any update to this as a whole, okay, to your consignment, or any modifications that might be made. Now, preventing pollution. The environment can be affected by your work. Recycle when possible. Don't put paint, oil, cleaning fluids, etc. down drains. Don't allow chemicals to seep into the ground. Prevent rubbish blowing around. Dispose of hazardous waste or materials to approved sites. Keep the noise to a minimum. Keep any smells that are produced to a minimum. Make sure any mobile or other lights positioned where they are not causing a nuisance. Right, recycling, reducing waste in the electrotechnical industry. You could reduce waste by using leftover materials, look for the shortest cut runs, etc. Avoid over ordering, reduce your packaging, recycle where appropriately, etc. etc. Okay. Okay, and this just shows you a list of things that you can actually recycle. Okay. Now here we have Control of Noise at Work Regulation 2005. Now again, check on the HSE website to see if there has been any amendments to this, so we can update ourselves in regards to this issue. Okay. Now, the Noise Regulation 2005 require employers to prevent or reduce risk to health and safety from exposure to noise at work. Noise is measured in decibels. Level of noise exposure must not exceed daily or weekly exposure of 87 dBs. Okay. So you can see that somewhere between here, 87 dBs decibels. So whether you're in a primary classroom or in a loud radio conversation, etc. Okay. Tractor cab. So be aware of what you're looking at and your noise levels. Okay. If it's noisy, then you will need to wear the appropriate ear protection. And some of you would have seen that in the classroom already, and some of you would have used these in the workshop. And again, this can be taken from the HSE website. As you can see, I've pointed here in the corner. Okay. Now, how can noise levels be reduced? Use a different quieter process, introduce engineering controls, etc. etc. So again, you need to look at this for yourself and read information. Now remember, you need to extract this to make it your own. Okay. Do not assume that it's just going to pop out at you or it's going to write itself. It will not. Sorry, what? Let me just adjust that a little bit. Thank you. Okay. Now, packaging. Essential requirements regulation. Now, the regulation aims to minimize the amount of waste packaging created and ensure that packaging can be reused, recovered or recycled. They are enforced by trading standards departments of local authorities. The regulations state that the amount of packaging must be the minimum required. Packaging has a minimal environmental impact. Packaging does not contain high levels of noxious or hazardous substances. The amount of heavy metal does not exceed 100 ppm by weight. Now reuse your packaging or recycle. Okay. Environmental Act 1995, okay, or the Environment Act 1995. Environment Act 1995 set up the Environment Agency to protect the environment and manage resources. Part 1 gives the EA and SEPA responsibility. Part 2 sets out the system to identify and repair contaminated land. Part 4 requires Secretary of State to prepare national air quality strategy in Great Britain. Part 5 requires the Secretary of State to national waste strategy. Also requires SEPA to prepare a national waste strategy, enable regulations to be made to enforce the relevant legislations. Okay, I've just simplified that basically, but you can read this for yourself. You don't need me to be reading this out to you. Okay, thank you. And again, update yourself in regards to the IET regs. Update yourself in regards to the on-site HSE website, Health and Safety Executive website. That keeps you well informed and up to date. Now this we, okay, don't mean any other we. Waste electrical and electronic equipment is one of the fastest growing waste streams in the UK and the EU. Now again, substances and parts such as mercury in some switches, lead in solder, cadmium in batteries, etc. Now heavy metals are particularly harmful to the environment because they accumulate through the food chain and can cause a serious health effects in humans. Other items are also potentially damaging, such as pesticides. Well, references to plastics, which can leach into the soil, causing toxicity in wildlife. Sorry about that. I cannot get my tongue around it. It's okay. Leach. Now, leach means simply that it's a device. It leaks out of the outer. If it's in a container, it might leak out of the container because the plastic container which is holding it in has suddenly begun to deteriorate. So it begins to leach out. Okay, that's what leach means. Okay, but you can read this for yourself anyway. Okay, thank you. Now again, we waste electrical and electronic equipment. Back to we. The aim of we is to reduce the amount of electrical and electronic equipment being produced. Every year, an estimated 1 million tons of we items are discarded by householders and companies in the UK. So we need to find a way of processing those items more efficiently. If your business uses electrical and electronic equipment, you should be aware of your responsibilities when you dispose of it. Electrical and electronic equipment that requires the special disposal will have a waste bin crossed out symbol. Okay, that's okay. I'm just reviewing something here, making sure that got all that I had in mind in place. Okay. And again, my apologies about the telephone. These things cannot be predicted. Okay, typical we items: large household appliances, small household appliances, IT and telecommunications, consumer equipment, etc., lighting equipment, electrical and electronic tools, toys, monitoring and control equipment, etc. You can read this in full for yourselves. I'm just going through it in brief, okay? Not to illustrate that. So you need to make sure that you have looked at the information and read it for yourself and make the information your own. Okay. What are you trying to tell me now? Hope nothing. Okay. Right. Thank you. I hope you found this useful. I'm just going to leave you now with some questions. Now, you must answer the questions. Okay. Then show me what your answers were, and I can give you. I can then confirm the answers for you, whether or not they're correct or incorrect. But you'll find that the answers for all of these is in the text. Read the text slowly and carefully, step by step. I'm in class the other day, and I gave someone some. We went through some PowerPoints, and at the end of the PowerPoint, I gave them a handout, and I said, complete the question at the back. First thing I said, sir, I can't find the answers to the questions. Okay, so I went over, blip blip, what's that? Boom, got the answer there already. Listen, read the text. Oh, sorry, let me just get text on so you can read it before I begin to chastise you over it. Okay, go back a bit. Next one. Now read these for yourselves, okay? I'll try to make sure that they are within frame shot and that they can be read. Okay? Okay. I hope you found this useful, and again, have a good day. Bye bye.